What's up everybody? Welcome back to Level Up Classics. Today, we're going to be changing the oil on both our Porsche 964s. We have a lot of information to cover today, so let's jump right in. But before we get started, if you haven't, click that subscribe button to help support my channel. For today's oil change, I'm going to be using full synthetic liquid moly 5W40, Mala filters, and some new crush washers. There's an extra seal in my pile, but just ignore that. I won't be using those larger seals. Next, let me show you where the drain plugs are. It's in front of the rear passenger side wheel. Here's a plug with a side skirt, a rocker panel, hiding the drain plug. And here's the drain plug without a side skirt covering it up. Here's the engine case oil drain plug. The drain plug is right here on the left-hand side of the engine. As you can see on my catch tray, I have a few leaks on this car. Part of my project on this car is to address all the leaks from the previous owner. So hopefully, I can share more videos as how I sort out this car. The tools we need are pretty much only a really big oil catch can, preferably another smaller catch tray, a 15mm wrench, a torque wrench, and maybe a little helper bar, and tons of rags or paper towels. To begin, warming up your car helps a little to get the oil moving. It doesn't have to be blazing hot so you don't burn yourself. So to change the oil, you have a couple of options. To lift your car on the rear or put the car on jack stands so it's level. I did both for us to see. If you need a refresher on this, you can check out my last video on how to lift the 964. We got the cars ready for the oil change, and now we're ready to begin the oil change. Also, there are many ways to do these tasks. You can choose what's best for you, and many of us have different tools and equipment, so there's not one way to do these things. Once the car is secure and safe to work on, I started out with the engine drain plug. Remove the 15mm drain plug from the engine case. I started on this one first so I can drop the car back down and let the oil keep draining out. These cars take about 10 quarts or a little over 9 liters of full synthetic oil to fill up the engine and oil tank. Not all of it comes out when we drain it, but make sure you have a big oil container. Once you open the engine deck lid, you'll find the oil filler neck right here, and the filter is right next to it. Open the cap to the oil filler neck so that it can help vent and drain the oil. Let it thoroughly drain, and then swap a smaller tray to catch the remaining oil. If the rear of your car is raised, then lower it back down so you can drain more oil out. If you need to lower the rear, you can plug the drain back really quickly, and then remove the drain by hand once it's on the ground. While this continues to drain, we move to the oil tank drain plug now. Remove the drain plug and let the oil tank drain now. While we're draining the oil, we can clean the drain plugs. These have magnetic heads on them, and it allows them to catch metal debris in the oil. Once the drain plugs are cleaned, we'll put our new crush washers on them. Once all the oil is out, we can close up our oil tank and reinstall the drain plug and crush washers. We're going to torque it down to 37 foot-pounds. You'll see various torque specs all over the internet. However, these are from the last Technical Service Bulletin, or TSB, recommending 37 foot-pounds for both drain plugs. For the engine drain plug, you have a couple of options to torquing this down. You can either get a slim torque wrench or torque wrench extension, or you can loosen or remove the heat exchanger, or you can just do it by your professional 37 foot-pounds by feel. You can see right here that my Craftsman torque wrench doesn't fit in here, so you have to find something that will fit. For this occasion, I opted for tightening it back by feel. I'd say it's pretty close to 37-ish foot-pounds. Next, we move to the oil filter. This is where things get a little bit messy. Oil changes on the 964 are similar to the 993, but we only have one oil filter instead of two. Here, I'm just using some rags to catch the oil that spills out. Get some nice absorbent rags and tuck them under the oil filter. I'm using my channel locking oil filter remover wrench just to break it free, and then I'll twist it off by hand. Here you'll need to drop the oil filter down and then pull it out so that it can clear the lines in the intake. Clean the oil filter area. If you want to depressurize the oil filter, you can stab the oil filter with a screwdriver, or you can unbolt a bolt in the back side of the oil filter in the wheel well. This will require an optional step of removing the wheel. I wish I had taken off the wheel just to show you guys where that bolt is, but unfortunately I didn't. This is just an option if you want less mess too. This optional step would be easier if the car was already up on a lift or something and you can pull the wheel right off. I saw a pretty cool oil catch tray that tucks underneath the oil filter made by Renline. Maybe one of these days I'll pick one up to test it out. Next, we oil our new oil filter with some clean oil. Here, you can see it's like one rag worth of oil. It's honestly not too bad, but yeah, you can vent it if you want. Then we reinstall the new oil filter hand tight. Sometimes it gets a little slippery from all the oil, so maybe some gloves will help. I also wash my hands a lot during this process. When we look for oils for the Porsche, we look for oils with ZDDP around 1200 parts per million. ZDDP is the most common zinc-based additive that is used primarily as an anti-wear agent to prevent premature engine wear. Now we're ready to start filling the car back up with oil. Oil is always a controversial and touchy topic. There's tons of forums and threads on what oil is best, and really I think it comes down to where you're located, the use case for your car, is it for track or occasional driving, and what your engine likes and has had good experience with in the past. It's ultimately up to you to pick a good oil for your car. I typically run Mobil 1 V-twin oil or 15W50, but it's really cold this year. Also, over these past years, I haven't driven much lately with COVID and all these supply shortages, and trying to find some of these oils in the stores is a little bit difficult. Regardless, I still change the oil every year just from the degrading properties over time. So I'm not too worried about using this viscosity this time. I know there will be naysayers, but here I'm filling up the oil. I'll do about 6 to 7 quarts and then start checking the dipstick and soon the oil gauge. The dipstick is located in the top right corner of the engine compartment. Once we have a good amount of oil in the car, I'll wait until I see some oil on the dipstick, and then I'll run the car. If you have a battery tender, take it off. I have my trusty Noco Series 5 battery tender. These are awesome. And here, I took the car out for a drive. I wish I had filmed some of this as well, but I didn't. It's hard to film and drive a manual car. I took the car out for a drive, and I got it fully warmed up to operating temperatures. And then I came back, and guess what? It's time to fill it up some more. It's going to be low still, and I want to get the oil gauge about to the halfway point. So now we fill it up some more. In a perfect world, you want to get it to the halfway point of the dipstick and to the halfway mark of the oil gauge. Over the years, sometimes they'll show differently, and the oil gauge inside the oil tank will read differently from the dipstick. So go by the oil gauge at operating temps. And that's how you do your 964 oil change. So to review a few things, having 2 oil catch trays is very helpful. 1 large container and 1 smaller one. And letting it sit for a while so that the most oil can drain out. So take a beer break or something and then come back when you're done with your break, and it should be ready by then. If your car is on all 4 jack stands, you may have an issue sticking the pan underneath the oil drain plug. Get a funnel to help with this situation. I've seen some pretty cool contraptions people have come up with over the years, like using a 2-liter soda bottle or some PVC pipe to make a guide for the oil. Make sure you use new crush washers. Torque the drain bolts down to 37 foot-pounds. Lube up the oil filter before you put it on, and clean the oil filter housing and make sure nothing is stuck in there. Have lots of rags to soak up the oil that spills out of the oil filter. And yes, I am running my car on jack stands. Get the car to operating temps so that the oil gauge reads correctly, and this will let you know if you filled the oil enough. Some commonly used oil viscosities are 15W40, 15W50, or 20W50. In the forums, there's a lot of discussion about zinc-based additives. ZDDP. It's a zinc additive in our oils. ZDDP is the most common zinc-based additive that's primarily used as an anti-wear agent to prevent premature engine wear. In our Porsches, we like a nice sweet range around 1200 parts per million ZDDP. Not too much, not too little. In this liquid moly, we have around 1100 parts per million ZDDP. And make sure the oil gauge is in the middle. On my gray car, the dipstick was perfectly in the middle of the two marks, and the line was perfectly in the middle on the oil gauge. And there you have our recap. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and even more, I hope this helped some of you out there with your air-cooled cars. If you haven't yet, help me out with a sub to help support my channel and give this video a like, so I can continue to make more content like this. This is not a sponsored video. Thank you so much for watching, and most importantly, keep leveling up.